Hi, welcome to Myers ASMR. For today's story time, I'm going to pick up with Piers Anthony's Tatham Mound. Tatham Mound. I just love this writer. First, I have to taste some of my grapes. A little hungry. How are you? Let all that stress melt away. And let's get into the story. Let's pick up where we left off. We're still in the very beginning of the story of the book. I have never met a man with no fear. I have not made proof of it, Throat Shot admitted. Perhaps I misunderstood the spirit. The traitor shrugged. Surely the proof will come in due course. Serve me well and I will introduce you to another traitor with whom I meet, who travels far to the north. Perhaps you will find what you seek there. I will serve you as well as I am able, Throat Shot said gratefully. Now we are ready to proceed. You surely know the folk of the next village. Yes, I have been there on occasion. They are Togo like us, on this side of the river. What do you wish me to say to them? Only translate what I tell you, and tell me what they say. I shall not cheat them, but I shall drive the best bargains I can. Remember that you serve me now, not them, though they be your friends. I shall remember, Throat Shot agreed. They resumed rowing. It was now afternoon. They had eaten some bread during their long talk and were refreshed. The canoe moved rapidly along. They drew to shore near the village of Ibihika, the river village, and the trader put a conch to his mouth and blew a loud note to signal his presence. In a moment, children were running down the path to the water, eager to guide the visitors in. This was much smaller than a toffee, but the people were compatible and relations were good. That meant that the two villages did not raid each other. The river was the boundary, beyond was raiding territory. In due course, the trading commenced. The trader brought out one of the beautiful feather cloaks. What have you to trade for this fine item? Throat Shot inquired of the chief. The chief answered with a question. You, with the bad arm, are you not Throat Shot, who killed the Kale warrior? Yes, but now I am translating for the trader, as he does not speak Toko. He needs slaves? I am not a slave, Throat Shot said indignantly. I help him because I travel with him. But does he trade for slaves? Throat Shot put the question to the trader. Not ordinarily, the trader replied cannily. It depends on what is offered. The chief summoned a girl. By the look of her barely into her first moss skirt. Children normally ran naked except in cold weather. Modesty was a quality limited to adolescents and adults. Her face was pretty, but her breasts and thighs were undeveloped. Ren is a good girl, the chief said, but she is growing up. And we have no need for another woman in our tribe right now. 5 cloaks for her. The trader squinted at Ren, then spoke in the Ais tongue. 5 of these valuable feather cloaks for one unable child? He must think me an idiot. 1 cloak if she's healthy. Throat Shot spoke to the chief in Toko. The trader appreciates your offer, but he feels that you ask too much for one so young. 1 cloak if she's healthy. He knew that the trader knew enough of the language to follow the dialogue, but the bargaining could proceed faster and better this way. He must think me an idiot, the chief exclaimed, echoing the trader's sentiment in the standard fashion. This girl will soon be a fine young woman, beautiful, worth a phenomenal price as a bride. Look at her lines. She is without blemish. 4 cloaks. Throat Shot relayed this offer to the trader, who had surely understood it, but preferred to pretend otherwise. She probably eats like a bear, the trader said. Suppose she runs away before I can place her. 2 cloaks. Throat Shot relayed this to the chief, who was already primed for the next offer. She eats like a chickadee, he said. She's a good, obedient girl who will not run away if not mistreated. 3 cloaks. The trader considered this. It was obviously the figure they had both been heading for. Ask her if she will run away. Throat Shot addressed the girl in Toko. Will you run away if you are not mistreated? She looked at him but did not reply. Ren, you must answer, Throat Shot said. Do you understand what the trader wants? The girl shook her head as if confused. Suddenly, Throat Shot caught on. She does not speak our language, he exclaimed. She is a captive from afar. She is still a good girl, the chief countered. She can grow corn. She can make pots. She can do the things a woman does. Find out what language she speaks, the trader said. Throat Shot addressed the girl in Kale, but she did not respond. Then he tried Kalusim. At this she reacted and answered, but haltingly. What is your native language? He asked. She said something completely alien, but with such finesse that it obviously was a language. This intrigued him. How could she speak a language whose like he had never heard before? He relayed the information to the trader, who again had picked it up pretty much for himself. Ask her where her homeland is, the trader said. Throat Shot asked. The girl glanced at the sun, oriented and pointed southwest. Far, far, she said in Kalusin. I'll take her, the trader said. 3 feather cloaks. He brought them out and proffered them to the chief. Throat Shot was amazed. But there is no tribe there, he protested. Far, far in that direction is the great sea. He was also privately nettled that the child had fetched a better price than Throat Shot himself had. Of course, she was a slave, while he was giving service for only a limited time. Still, don't you want to visit the local burial mound? The trader asked him. Have the girl show you the way and learn her language. I will bargain here for lesser trades. I can do that well enough in sign language. She may be more valuable than we know. Still dazed by this sudden settlement, Throatshot asked the chief if he could be permitted to visit the mound, with the girl to show him where it was. This surprised the chief. This is a holy place and a dangerous place for the uninitiate. Why do you want to go there? When I was wounded, Throatshot explained, touching his bad shoulder, I fell in a faint on an ancient mound, and the spirit of the mound spared my life so that I could go on a mission. He told me to inquire of other spirits. Are you not afraid to approach so hostile a region? They will not be the spirits of your own town there. They may do you mischief. I have no fear. The chief shrugged. Then go. The girl knows the way. I thank you. Throatshot turned to the girl. Take me to the burial mound, he said carefully in Calusan. Wren understood. Her eyes went round. Bad spirits. They will not harm us. Take me there. Reluctantly, she led the way down the appropriate path. The mound was some distance away, so there was time to talk. Throatshot pointed to an oak tree. Name, he asked in Calusan. Oak, she said in the same language. No, in your tongue. She glanced at him, surprised. She said a word in the strange language. Throatshot repeated it. That surprised her again. He pointed to a palmetto clump. Name? She gave it in her language and he repeated it. He pointed to himself. Man. Name? She gave another strange word. She was quick enough to understand, and that was a good sign. She was no idiot, just a girl whose language was foreign. He took her through the words for girl, arm, leg, hand, foot, head, eye, mouth, nose, and so on, getting the basics down. The strangeness of her tongue was a real challenge for him, but this was his talent, to remember tongues. Once he had a term, he remembered it. He also acquired the words for interaction, so that he was able to make simple sentences in her tongue. Her perplexity gradually became joy. It had been a long time since someone had spoken her tongue, even haltingly. Then they were at the mound, and her fear returned. Wait here, he said in her tongue. Do not move. The spirits will not hurt you. I must talk to them. Wren stopped, glad to advance no further. He was already assured that she would not run away. The trader had perhaps understood that she would not flee someone who tried to communicate with her. He went to the mound. O spirits of this mound, he intoned, I come from Dead Eagle, and I beg your help. Will you speak to me? He waited, but there was no response. The spirits of this mound would not talk to him. I apologize for intruding on you, he said with regret. I will not return. He left the mound and walked to Wren, who stood staring at him. You speak to the dead, she asked, having to use the collusive term for bones to convey the concept. The dead, yes, he agreed. Name? She gave the name for the dead in her tongue. But they did not speak to me, he concluded. The spirits speak only to whom they choose to. But I know they listened because they did not try to harm either of us. Yes, she agreed, relieved. They returned to Ibihika, where the trader was concluding his business. Then they were invited to share the hospitality of the village, as was the custom. The trader turned to Throatshot. She will not run away? He asked in his own tongue. She will not run, Throatshot agreed. They spent the night, the trader with a nubile girl of the village, Throatshot, in a separate house with Wren. It was now his job to watch her. If she fled, it would be his responsibility. He was satisfied. They talked late in the darkness, exchanging words. He found in her a mind as quick as his own. He assured her early that warriors did not seek female favors of children. It seemed she had some doubt, but he did not pursue that aspect. She was, after all, a captive, and captives had no rights. She could have suffered anything. He preferred to assume she had not, without asking. She became increasingly friendly as she gained confidence in him, until he had to remind her that he served the trader, and it was the trader who would decide what to do with her. She would probably be traded away when a profitable opportunity came. That reminder seemed to sadden her, but it was necessary. In the morning, they emerged quickly and took care of routine needs. They washed in the river, scrubbed their bodies with fine sand, urinated, and reset their hair. They would not eat until noon, after getting a fair morning's traveling done. Wren fitted in perfectly, evidently quite satisfied to be traveling with these two men. The trader led the way to the loaded canoe, which was undisturbed. He slid it into the water. About to step into it, he paused, dismayed. Bad omen, he muttered. Throatshot looked. There was a rattlesnake curled within the canoe, just waking from its sleep. Evidently, it had crawled into the dry place for the night and would move on when the day warmed. He means no harm, Throatshot said. The canoe is protected and warm. I will move him. The trader backed away, evidently thinking this was a joke. Wren stood her ground, but she was not as close to the canoe. Throatshot leaned over and put out his right hand slowly. Brother Rattlesnake, you are in our canoe, he said soothingly. We do not begrudge it to you, but now we must travel downriver. And you would not wish to go there. Let me help you on your way. He put his hand on the snake just behind the head and lifted gently. The snake felt the warmth of his hand and understood that this was not an attack. It was lethargic from its cooling of the night, and not eager for a quarrel with a creature the size of a man. It slithered forward, but not aggressively, Throatshot let it slide, moving his hand to guide its head to the edge of the canoe where it still touched the land. When it saw the solid ground, it slid beneath his hand and soon was out of the canoe and moving gracefully into the brush. I'm gonna have some more grapes. I'm so glad to be getting all this vitamin D from the sun. I bid you good hunting, brother Rattlesnake, Throatshot called. We had no quarrel, and hope for none tomorrow. He straightened up and turned to the others. Both the trader and Wren were staring at him. And now the others of the village were there too, similarly astonished. He meant no harm, Throatshot said, feeling defensive. There was no reason to kill him. Indeed, I would not want either his spirit or my friends of the Rattlesnake clan angry with me for doing such a thing. The trader recovered. You are right, he said briskly. It is a good job. We must be on our way. He checked the canoe carefully, then stepped into the rear. Throatshot followed, stepping into the front, and then Wren stepped into the middle. They pushed off and started paddling. The villagers were still standing silently, staring after them as they moved out of sight of the village. You spoke truly, the trader said. You have no fear. He was evidently impressed. You picked up a rattlesnake, Wren exclaimed. And it didn't bite you. Hello. What's your name? I'm reading a story on YouTube. So freaking cute. Then Throatshot realized what he had done. In all his prior life, he had been highly wary of poisonous snakes, as were all the folk he knew. Such snakes were like gods, and their presence could signal deep trouble, and even when it didn't, they remained dangerous. It had been his dread to tread on one by accident. Yet he had been conscious of none of that at the time. He had simply done what needed to be done. He had handled it as he would have handled a strange, burrowing tortoise. I knew it wasn't going to be long before somebody would take interest in me sitting out here like this. I guess it's time for me to pack up. I'm almost done with this part of the story, with chapter 2. He had handled it as he would have handled a stranded burrowing tortoise, with concern for the welfare of a totem. Dead Eagle had indeed taken away his fear. Ibihika will never forget you, Rin said. They thought you had been lucky in battle. Now they know how great a warrior you are. I am no warrior, Throatshot said, shrugging his left shoulder to remind her of the arm. He suffered a surge of pain and resolved not to do that again. I do not like killing. I took the easy way out. You could have fetched a net or poked it out with a long stick, Rin said. Brother Rattlesnake would not have liked that, but she was right. Any other person would have done it that way. You may not be a warrior, the trader said, but you are a man like no other. I would have paid all 5 cloaks for your service had I known. Throatshot could make no answer. Now, in retrospect, he was amazed at this verification of what Dead Eagle had done. He had never doubted, yet he was surprised. They continued downstream. Rin had nothing to do in the middle and talked with Throatshot in her own language, continuing to acquaint him with the words while the trader listened with approval. A talking girl was worth more than a mute one, and a smart one more than a stupid one. Also, she showed animation and prettiness when she spoke, and that, too, added to her value. Throatshot knew the thoughts of the trader, and was not at ease with them, for Rin was rapidly becoming a person to him rather than an item of trade. But what she told him was fascinating, and he couldn't help himself. He had to encourage her and listen. The trader required him to translate it periodically, and he did so to the best of his ability. The trader, too, was interested, and it seemed not purely for commercial reason. His motive might differ from Throatshot's, but he was interested in learning new things. During the next several days, they moved down the river to the sea, traveling slowly, trading at every village. This was the trader's main region for business, and he evidently enjoyed the hospitality of the villages. In this period, Rin told them the story of her mother and herself. It was an amazing tale. And that's the end of chapter 2. That completes today's story time. Well, thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing here, help me out. Donate to my Cash App, like, and subscribe. Catch me in the next video, and may you find lasting happiness.